I'm there with you. And when I first started, it was the same. And I had a lot of contacts that had known me as a marketer, and I literally started picking up the phone, and I was like, "What do you need?" And so
Mm.
my journey was really like started doing everything myself. I started building out the agency model, and I quickly came up against some really tough things that because I actually had never worked at an agency. So this is where I would love to start, because you really primarily coach freelancers that are looking, well, actually marketers that are looking to start sort of freelancing careers, right? And also help coach people to start agencies, or basically rejig their agency. Annelise, hello. Thank you so much for being here at the Scalable Marketing Machine podcast. Why don't we get started by you telling us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and why you love doing what you do?
Thank you so much for having me, Victoria. So I am a business strategist, first and foremost. I'm a marketing agency CEO, and I coach women now, mostly in the freelance marketing agency space, to build their business for freedom. So that's like that's the professional side. The personal side is I have 4 children and I homeschool them, and we
Oh,
get to travel around and take the business. I think everyone's traumatized from like pandemic homeschooling. It
yes.
doesn't have to be like that, people. It doesn't, it's actually very relaxed and very fun. But
Yeah.
that's me, and that's really important to me. I get to have my husband home with me. We get to travel. I spend time with my family, and I get to do challenging work with powerhouse women, and it's awesome.
It's awesome. Well, I know I have to say, I think like for all of the challenges and all of the growing pains, right, of sort of branching out to do your own thing, and like many of us, I would love to hear more about your origin story, but we're both marketers, we're both moms. My story sort of was born out of this necessity where I was a marketer inside of, you know, a corporation. I was on that track, and we moved, and it just didn't make sense for me to go find another full-time job. I had just had my first son, and marketing online was like this complete gift that I was given to be able to work at my own pace and really truly create a life, right? So how did you sort of find your way into marketing? And obviously you run your own agency. So let's dig into
Mhm.
that a little bit.
So very similar, actually. So it was the same. I was running a national training company, actually, in the, management marketing role. We moved 2 hours away, back to where we were from, back to the coast.
Yeah.
Um, and I asked for flexible time because it was 2 hours commute there, 2 hours commute back, and they declined that. And I was working, I think 4 days. They wanted me 5, and I was like, I'm not doing it, because the same had 2 young children at the time.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to leave when they're asleep. I'm going to get home when they're asleep, and that's not what I want for my family and my life.
Yeah.
And so I quit, and we moved regionally. So I had to start my own business. There was no good paying part-time jobs, and this was 2017.
Yeah.
So working from home and online is okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's where it started, from my in-laws' house where we were living,
Yeah.
because we'd sold our house to figure out what we were going to do. From, the the dodgy kitchen table. That's where I started calling myself an agency.
I'm there with you. And when I first started, it was the same. And I had a lot of contacts that had known me as a marketer, and I literally started picking up the phone, and I was like, "What do you need?" And so
Mm.
my journey was really like started doing everything myself. I started building out the agency model, and I quickly came up against some really tough things that because I actually had never worked at an agency. So this is where I would love to start, because you really primarily coach freelancers that are looking, well, actually marketers that are looking to start sort of freelancing careers, right? And also help coach people to start agencies, or basically rejig their agency. to be better.
Totally.
And
Completely.
completely. So I found myself in this situation that I think so many of us marketers are, where we kind of go in for this life of freedom, and what we realize is we've built a terrible job for ourselves with just a lot of different bosses.
Yeah.
Right? Just right. So my question is
Yeah,
like, I
it's
wish that
true.
I knew you back in 2017, because that was sort of what I was really up against. And I ended up diverging and sort of I was really scared of having that agency. And I sort of went sort of this fractional executive route, because I didn't want to carry the people with me and I didn't know a better way. So if we're talking right now to someone that, because the typical track is they're a freelancer and they build trust with the client, and then the client asks, can you also do X? Can you also do Y? Can you also do Z? And I think a lot of people are like, I'm an agency now, because they get someone to do X, they get someone to do Y, they get someone to do Z. But sometimes, typically, they create a very stressful situation for them. So what would you say to this person? Like, what's the
Oh,
first
I,
step
th
to
I think
recovery?
I think we're all there, right? Because we start our business and we need to make money. And so we say yes and then figure it out afterwards. And either we get the skills or we wing it and like hope that it all comes together. Or yes, we hire people, typically junior people, because we don't have a large amount of cash flow coming in. We undercharge, and we literally then are carrying the weight of these people who can't do their jobs because we haven't trained them and because they're not built to. It's really not their fault.
Yeah.
We don't know how to lead. We don't know we don't know how to charge. We don't know how to like save for taxes. I mean, and I'm speaking generally, right? That this was me, because I was like, I can run a business. I've managed this national corporation. Yeah,
Right.
kind of.
Right. Right. Right.
Not from the ground up. And
Right.
so this, I don't know. We just find a lot of us find ourselves in that place where we've said yes to everything and we haven't put the right structure in place. And if you have connections initially, then yeah, you can hustle and hard work your way to kind of the same income that you had before, approximately. And then around that like 20K per month mark, I find that's when the wheels come off, because you're picking up the pieces from your team who are delivering bad quality. You're losing clients because of bad quality, that you're working till 2 o'clock in the morning because, you said that you would do these things and you thought they were getting done and they're not getting done. So, and I was right there, right? I was right there maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I think like I've lost track of time, but it was a few years. I'd say 4. I'm like, oh, maybe it was 6. Anyway,
Yeah.
and I forgot to pick my youngest up from kinder, because I picked up my older two. We're at a different campus right next door, and I didn't normally pick them up on that day, but I had a meeting close by, and I was like, oh, hubby, I'll pick the kids up.
Yeah.
Got home, got the call. I was like, I can't. Like, it was so heartbreaking to me. Like, that was the moment that I had to see, to say, and like, she was safe, right? So it was fine. She was in a center, but I started my business to be home with my kids, and I'm so scattered that I forgot my child. Like, oh, this is not the person and the mother
First
that
of
I
all,
want to
we've all been
be.
there, by the way. So we've all been there.
Seriously. And I
But
just felt like I was doing everything so badly. I was a bad wife. I was a bad friend. I was doing bad at the job. So what I would say to that person who is like thinking about starting their own business or is in that place now, it's like, pull the emergency brake and actually step back and decide the life that you want to live. Actually design it, craft it out, and then build the business to fit that. And make sure, because no one's going to uphold those boundaries for you. You have to put them there, and you have to hold them there every day, and not let the meetings creep out, and not hold the computer open past when you said you were going to, and all of those things. And craft get the clients and craft the offers around what works for you, not for everyone else. Or you sacrifice yourself and your well-being for the growth of other people's businesses and not your own.
well, I also think that one huge mindset blocker for doing that is understanding how and why to set boundaries with clients. And so I think that a lot of us get stuck, because we tie our self-worth in on the client's happiness, like regardless if the client has realistic expectations or a budget, right? But I think a lot of us, especially women, and or maybe I'm alone, but I definitely felt this, I really wanted to make the clients happy. We all do, right? But there comes a point where putting guardrails on what our offerings are, right? Or doing something like, hey, you've gone like over your time if you're doing on a time thing, or that's not in scope. I just find that those, for me, it was so, so difficult to do that. What is your advice for that? And do you have any story that I'm sure you do
Oh,
where
totally.
like had to hold those lines and sometimes, and the clients, maybe they're not going to be happy about it. And that's awful. But what's the higher power, right? To be able to build something that's more sustainable and scalable. But what's some advice for someone dealing with boundaries with clients?
Mm. So, what finally drove it home for me, and I think it might be different for everyone, but yes, I was there with you, and I do find it's predominantly women, though I'm sure I'm sure that's blurred. And I do find it's a service provider thing, right? We want to provide a service. We're people pleasers and we pretzel ourselves into it. So, when I heard the line that people pleasing is not making you money, and I was like, oh, okay.
That's a good
And
one.
then someone else told me that I was robbing from my children by at by over delivering and taking time away from them. I was like, oh, okay, that's a stab in the guts.
Yeah.
So for me, when I realized like I was robbing financially and from time wise from my kids, from time with my kids and money that we would put towards our family, I was like, okay, all right,
That
like
hit you.
that's not okay. And isn't it funny how like not for ourselves but for our kids or for other people, again, back to that service mindset. And then it's really is deciding what it is that you want to do and just holding the line.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes you get to choose, but I've had so many different things happen. Like I learned really early on to charge and get paid in advance because
Mhm.
people who I trusted for a really long time would then not pay. There's still a ex-client from 2 years ago that owes me like $11,000. They paid consistently for 2 years, amazingly. Then for a couple of months, just stopped. And I was like, no, it's fine. We'll keep doing the work. I'm paying my team to do the work. They didn't pay. They said they paid. I'm like, you you didn't pay. There's
Mhm.
like, why would I? But so
I've
even
been
the
there
people that
too.
you trust, and
I know.
yeah.
And these are the things that come with experience. I think that's the number one struggle is a lot of us end up like the situation we said before. Many of us kind of end up in this agency situation because we start as a copywriter or we start as a virtual assistant or a marketing or an email marketer or whatever. And
Mm.
we want to say yes to opportunities. And so I think we both can say we didn't realize all that came with sort of running this agency model because what happened in my career is I had started again picking up the phone, I'll do anything, whatever. And that was actually, it was a period of time that was necessary for me, right? Because I managed email and I managed social media accounts and I learned everything in my own hands and I got certificates for, Google AdWords and all these things that I just was not my highest power. But I struggled for a couple of years doing that. And then I got a job inside of an agency. And that's where like everything changed because when I was working inside with an established agency, it was like pulling the curtains and I was like, oh, like this is how you do a proposal and like here's how you put packages together and all this stuff. And that's why it's so amazing to have someone like you who are guiding people to show them the way because there's so much about marketing that I learned from being in that agency setting, but it was like regardless of the agency, it was just the fact that I had a senior marketer that could tell me something besides just like Googling it. And I think that
Mm.
there's a lot of mixed messages and there's a lot of noise. And yes, we could like piecemeal together these things, but I can tell you, like, you could burn out before it becomes profitable and like you could waste a lot of time. So talk to me a little bit about your specific programs, because I think this is really interesting. So these two sort of core offers, right? Where you have
Mhm.
one, you have someone that's looking to get sort of into freelancing, and then you have someone that's ready to do like an agency model. So how do you work with your clients?
Yeah, so it's actually the the newer piece is helping people who are getting started. So I've always worked with women like us who, are already maxed out, burnt out, overworked, underpaid, and who, because that's where I got the most stuck. And I was like, how do I actually figure this out and get people to pay more? And so they're the women that I've worked with for 2.5 years in that sort of model. It's called Agency Academy. But lately, this year, the conversations I'm having or people are coming to me about are that they can't find enough clients, that, they've got 2 or 3 clients and they're, earning $500 a week or whatever, or it's inconsistent, and they couldn't get to that 10K month mark to replace their income so that they can, stay home with their kids or whatever it is that they want to do. And so I just broke out the first part, which is all of the foundations of the higher program. And now we do a 12-week version to plug any holes and to establish, even if they've been working for a few years as a VA, again, making lots of mistakes that we don't know that we're making. How do we shore up the offer? How do we price based on value so we're not charging $60 an hour or whatever it happens to be? And actually move to a model where we're working with high value clients that appreciate us, that are happy to pay, and we get to do really great work for them. And typically that comes from charging more, because then you get to relax, you get to do a really good job, you get to get the results because you're spending the time and the abilities there to get really great results at the thing that you do. And then it's the flywheel, because then they're happy, they refer you, and you get it's just better for everyone. You get paid, they get results. It's win-win.
Exactly, exactly. And so I love that, and I think that so many marketers that are in it, I always say it's like the shoemaker that has no shoes. So many marketers, myself included, like when we put the spotlight on our own business, it's far more difficult to understand like your ideal client, right? Like, are you really speaking to them? Like, what's your value prop? Like, is your offer clear enough? That's why I think it's so valuable to have coaches or consultants or mastermind friends or whatever that are going to help you step back, because you work with marketers, you as marketers we know like the pieces of the puzzle, but it often becomes kind of difficult to do it for ourselves, right?
Totally.
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 I would deal with that today, like in my business today still, like I need
Yeah.
to reach out to other people because it really helps you to see things clearly.
Yeah. I think we're too close to it. But I also think that's a block for people for getting help, because then there's an embarrassment there. Like, I should be good at this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's
I
so
just think we're too close to it. And I think like that ego part we need to put aside and go, okay, like, yeah, maybe I'm great at my craft, but the whole picture requires more business acumen than marketing. And even marketing, there's so many pieces to it. And if you're great at marketing for coaches, that is not the same as marketing a B2B service. It is like the things that you're going to be doing for your clients aren't necessarily the same things you're going to be doing for yourself and that are going to work. And so just always, I think, being open to learning. We all should all be learning, like all of the time. And marketing moves fast. So we get to have fun with it and change and learn from other people.
okay, let's talk about that, about all of the pieces of marketing. I think that nowadays, for many clients, many founders that I work with, I think that there's this deep misconception that you could find one marketing genius or even one agency that's going to help you develop everything for your business. And I'm wondering, like, what's your opinion on that? Because there's the data driven side, there's the creative driven side. um what do you think is the best situation for someone that's like maybe feeling a like tendency towards one of those sides, but they feel like they need to get perfect at another side in order to be marketable? What would you say is like the best sort of way to focus your time and attention in terms of what you're offering?
So tricky. I, you have to think about the scalability of it. And so either way, you need a plan. Both are possible, but you need a plan. The trap that I think a lot of people get into is trying to do everything for all of the clients. And then all of a sudden they're holding like 10, 20, 30 clients by themselves doing everything and just having a couple of VAs on the back. That is a recipe for burnout. The mental load of that, trust me, I tried. It's like it's it's not a good plan. Even if you can, it doesn't mean that you should, because right, I started my marketing agency from scratch. I can do everything. I know a bit of SEO, I know a bit of Google Ads, I know, like, should I be doing all of those things? No, I should not. I should not. And probably neither should you. I mean, yes, like you mentioned at the start, yes, open all of the doors, try all the things, but quickly figure out what your thing is going to be, either your craft like SEO or copywriting, or your niche. So my marketing agency is actually trades, construction. So I
No,
know
really?
random. Yeah, I know. I know random,
I
right?
kind of love that though.
That's where we started. Now, of course, I work with a lot of coaches and nonprofits and things like that. But the agency is branded for trades and construction because that is purely lead generation, service-based lead generation. And so, yes, it's more than one thing technically. There's some social media, there's Google ads, there's Facebook ads, but it's one funnel that we got to be really, really good at. And that's what I would recommend. So whether it's like a super niche skill or a niche industry where you you want to be able to have incredible case studies, ideally around one audience, because then you are going to be able to sell it better.
Mhm.
Because then people just come to us. We don't do any marketing. We have a static grid on the socials because we weren't doing marketing, like you were saying, the shoemaker with no shoes. So we changed to like a 9 grid. We don't do anything there. If we want clients, we do a paid funnel, but we have people coming to us because we're so specific. They're in construction, they need a marketer. We're a marketing team that does
Yeah,
construction. They're already sold. If they're coming on knocking on the door, they're already sold.
yeah.
And so what is your version of that? That's what I would recommend. Either it's like I help podcasts grow, or I help tradies get leads. I don't even know if you guys call them tradies. You clearly
No,
my Australian accent.
no, no. I'll take that. Um,
Construction contractors, that's the word. Contractors. Um, so that would be my recommendation. Get niche in some way, either your skill or your industry or the result that you deliver, because it's more marketable, because you get to get better results. And then you're the specialist, you're not the generalist, and you get paid as the specialist.
yeah.
It's not your general practitioner doctor, it's your,
Your
I don't know,
cardiologist.
OB/GYN.
That's
Exactly. And the price difference is a lot, and it's the same with you. And so that's what I recommend.
I think this is part of such a good conversation that brings this whole thing back to the beginning, which is lifestyle, right? It's like,
Mm.
I think that for most of us, I think that there's a lot of rhetoric around how big you can grow and scale and all of this stuff. But I think for the majority of us, I think that we can identify, how much we want and can work, how many clients we can and want to serve. And we can put like a number that we want to get to, and we can reverse engineer that, and we can say, hey, listen, I can work with like 30, 50, 100 people, or I could work with 10, right? Or 5. And the way that you get to 10 or 5 is by exactly what we're talking about now, is honing in and be that specialist. So here's my last question, because I think this is on a lot of people's minds, not just marketers and people that want agency, but I think for founders on a whole, I think there's this tension between understanding niching down. And it sounds like you're a great person to answer this because you have a couple different segments that you serve. But many of us are faced with this moment where it's, yeah, we know that we need to niche down. However, sort of, it's very difficult to say no to opportunities in order to be true to your niche. So if you're talking to someone that is committed to sort of niching down, but they're in this phase where it's like, we're kind of just taking whatever's coming to us because we got to pay the bills. Do you have any advice for someone like that? That's like ready, like understands the benefits of niching, but is a little bit scared.
I would have a plan around it and just have an exit plan. So know what the end goal is and have that North Star. Yes, exactly what you said. How much do I want to earn and how much do I want to work? Okay, great. I want to take home, I don't know, $100,000 a year. That means I need to earn double that because taxes, expenses, all of that, at least double. Like do your own numbers, but everyone's going to be different. So then how many clients, what do I need to charge per month per client based on the amount of hours that I want to work and figure that out. In terms of how I did this, so I mentioned that I have the marketing agency for construction, and I also work with nonprofits and some coaches. That's because those opportunities came to me. And inside my funnel building experience for lead generation, I can apply that exact same thing to these other niches. Do I advertise it? No, I don't have a website for them. I never did. I just sent them a proposal. They know what I
Yeah.
do and the front face of that. And it's all within the same vein. Right. And I tried. So 2020, I started a VA agency to be able to do all the things, social media and operations and all of that. And I grew it to 6 figures within 3 months with a newborn, pandemic, the whole thing, right? It grew fast because I knew the system.
Oh,
But that for me wasn't fun because it was handling, the team was too big. And so we then were everything for everyone. I had an account, we had account managers that would speak to the clients. They would feed back to, whoever, 4, 6, 8 people behind them who were all, copywriters or Facebook ads, whatever. Then that person would communicate with the clients. That model works. It can work. But for me, with 4 young children wanting to travel, growing that was not what I wanted. So I shut it down after 2 years.
yeah.
Literally just closed it down, moved those people to other areas, moved people up into agency kind of retainer models and
Yeah.
cut out services
Yeah.
because the lifestyle that I wanted was more important to me than the high level revenue number. So it's really easy to get stuck in that. But life's so short. Like really come back to what do I want and how do I get highest profit for maximum money for working less, I guess, or however much you want to work.
We're honing in on the things that you enjoy. Like, I think that
Yeah,
that's the biggest takeaway of all of this and the great work that you're doing. But I think it applies to marketers, to agency owners, to founders in general, like anyone that's
totally.
trying to do their own thing. It's like, when you can step back and hone in on your highest power in
Yeah,
your life and your biggest gifts that you have that you can share with the world, right? When you focus on those things and then you get really good at being a leader for the it could be 1 or 2 people that help you in your business, and you
yeah,
can grow to incredible revenues with a very small team, right? That's sort of this idea of, yeah, even when you had those bigger revenues, maybe maybe your take home pay was less because the expenses are so much higher, right? And I
totally.
think sometimes we don't understand maybe under the roof, like the nuts and bolts of it all, especially when I think there's so much messaging with having to reach just certain levels of revenue in order to be legitimate or to be successful or whatever. But at the end of the day, defining success, right? If we can pick our kids up and do homework with them, which is like my biggest thing, right? To me, that's success, right? And be able to still make an
Yeah.
income and contribute, right? So I love it. Okay, so Annelise, if someone wants to dig in a little bit, or if someone's sitting here being like, I've created a person for myself in my agency, I need help from Annelise, where can they connect with you? Where's the best place to find you? Where do you like to hang out online?
Come and chat to me on Instagram. It's at Annelise Worn, my name. Have a look at the spelling. All one word.
Yeah,
Come and
and
have
we're
a
going to
chat.
link all this in the
Yeah.
show notes. Don't worry. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you so
That's the
much.
best place.
I'm so happy to have had this conversation, and we'll definitely be connected because there's tons of people in my world that are always looking to grow and expand their marketing services, and I think that you're definitely the gal to talk to. So
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.